slices. Okay, fine. So first, so this is the skeletal muscle. So now if you see, a small part of this muscle is enlarged. Okay, so now, okay, so this part is enlarged. Now you can see this muscle. Okay, this is called, inside this muscle fasciculus you can see there are furthermore small bundles of muscle fibers. Okay, so this is the bigger muscle, and inside the muscle you have the muscle fasciculus, and inside each fasciculus you have even smaller fibers. Okay, so what are these fibers called as? That's what you have to see. So this fiber is called as the muscle fiber. Okay, so this muscle fiber in turn again contains many smaller fibers, that is called as myofibril. So that is called as myofibril. So once again, so you have a bigger muscle. Okay, you have a bigger muscle. Okay, so it is called as a muscle fasciculus, and inside the muscle fasciculus you have muscle fibers, smaller bundles. So this is a muscle fiber, and each of this muscle fiber again, if you see inside, they have, I mean, again smaller muscle fibers. These smaller muscle fibers are known as myofibrils. They are known as myofibrils. Okay, fine. So this myofibril is the functional unit of the skeletal muscle. This myofibril is the functional unit of the skeletal muscle. So if you see on this myofibril, you can see alternating dark and light bands. Okay, dark and light bands. So now again, we are going to zoom on a part of this portion, and you see this is how your muscle myofibril will look. So your myofibril, it consists of, you see, there is a thin line and a thick line. So you have basically two contractile filaments. That is, these filaments can contract. Okay, so when these filaments contract, automatically the myofibril also will contract. Okay, so now you see this, there is a zigzag line. Okay, there is a zigzag line, and in between these two zigzag lines, so you have a light region, dark region, again you have a light region, again you have a dark region. Okay, so fine. So this is just the general structure of the skeletal muscle. Now we'll go a little bit into the detail of this. Now you see, so a portion has been zoomed here. Okay, so this portion again, this part alone has been zoomed. Okay, so this part from here to here, that is from this line to this line, it is called as the sarcomere. It is called as the sarcomere. So now we are going to see how the sarcomere will look like. Okay, so this is how the sarcomere will look like. So now you see, this is the zigzag line, this is the zigzag line, and this entire thing is the sarcomere, and you have a thick contractile filament, and then you have a thin contractile filament. Okay, so thick and a thin contractile filament. The thick filament is called as myosin, and the thin filament is called as actin. It is called as actin. So the contractile unit of the skeletal muscle is called the sarcomere. So sarcomere is nothing but the contractile unit. So you have many such contractile units or many such sarcomeres like this continuously. So when these together they contract, the skeletal muscle also will contract. Okay, so if this sarcomere contracts, the myofibril will contract. If all the myofibrils contract, then the muscle fiber will contract. If all the muscle fibers contract, then the whole muscle fasciculus and the muscle together, it will contract. That is how the muscle is going into contraction. This is skeletal muscle contraction. Okay, fine. So few important things which vocabulary which you'll have to understand. Sarcolemma. Okay, so what is sarcolemma? Sarcolemma is nothing but it is the plasma membrane. Okay, it is nothing but the plasma membrane. So for any cell, the outer covering, okay, it is called the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Okay, similarly, if it is for the muscle, okay, if the covering is for the muscle, then you will call it as the sarcolemma. You call it as a sarcolemma. Sarco means muscle. Okay, so since it is for the muscles, it is specifically known as sarcolemma. Okay, fine. Okay. Next, myofibrils. So just now we saw what a myofibril is. So each of the muscle fiber, they have many smaller fibrils. Okay, smaller muscle fibers. That is called as a myofibril. And inside the myofibril, just now I showed you there is a sarcomere which consists of the actin and the myosin. Next, sarcoplasm. Okay, so the spaces between the myofibrils. So see here. So this is the myofibrils. You have many round myofibrils, and in between here there is gap. Okay, there is a small gap. So the spaces are filled by, okay, the spaces are filled by fluid. Okay, they're filled by cellular fluid. Okay, so this fluid is called as the sarcoplasm. Okay, this fluid is called as the sarcoplasm. The spaces between the myofibrils, they are filled with a fluid, cellular fluid known as sarcoplasm. So now you can see here the same thing. So whatever I told you, now these are all myofibrils. These are all myofibrils, and this is a muscle fiber. This is a muscle fiber. This muscle fiber has many myofibrils, and each myofibril has alternating dark and light bands. Okay, this is because of the sarcomere. We'll come back into it. Okay. Now this muscle fiber is covered by a membrane. This membrane is known as sarcolemma. You can see this reddish thing is the sarcolemma. Okay, fine. Next, sarcoplasmic reticulum. So now if you see here, this bluish thing, there is a reticulum, that is a network which is running all around the myofibril, covering the entire muscle fiber. Entire skeletal muscle fiber is covered by a network of red fibers, network of fibers, reticulum. So this is called as the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Okay, this is nothing but very simple. Every cell has a mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, nucleus. The same way, this is also a modified or specialized endoplasmic reticulum of the skeletal muscle fiber. So just like this plasma membrane was called as sarcolemma, here the endoplasmic reticulum of the skeletal muscle fiber is also called as the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So you see this bluish sarcoplasmic reticulum which is covering, which is forming a network. Okay, it is covering the entire myofibril. Okay, what is the importance of this sarcoplasmic reticulum? So if you see here, this sarcoplasmic reticulum, here it is dilated. Okay, so this portion here it is dilated, and here it is thin. Okay, then again here it is dilated. Okay, so this is called as the cisternae, terminal cisternae. The dilated portion is called as the terminal cisternae. Okay, so you see, so this is how. So this is called as the terminal cisternae. This portion, dilated portion. Now this will branch into multiple branches. Okay, will go into multiple branches like this, and again this side there is a dilated portion. Again, this is called as the terminal cisternae. Okay, so this terminal cisternae contains or stores calcium. It contains calcium. Okay, and from this cisternae perpendicularly, not this like this, perpendicularly. I cannot show you this direction. I mean, it is coming towards you. If you are facing the screen, it is coming towards you. So there is a small tubule which is coming directly upwards like this. This is called as the T tubule. This is called as the T tubule. Okay, so here it is cut off. You can see the pink portion, the pinkish one. It is coming, but it is cut off. Okay, that is called as the T tubule. Okay, fine. So now we have learned three important things: sarcolemma, the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the terminal cisternae with the T tubule. Okay, this is important. So the main importance of the sarcoplasmic reticulum is calcium. It stores calcium. What is the importance of this calcium? This calcium is required for contraction of the skeletal muscle. Okay, next. So now I told you T tubule. Okay, so why it is called as T tubule? Because it is in the shape of a T. Okay, something like this. Like this. Okay, so this is a T tubule. Okay, which is situated on the terminal cisternae. Okay, so this T tubule. Okay, this is what we are seeing. This is like the shape of a T. Okay, this is the shape of a T. So in this T tubule, if you see here, okay, you see here, there is a calcium channel. Okay, there is a calcium. This is a voltage gated calcium channel, which means this calcium channel will open in response to changes in the voltage. Okay, so there are other channels like ligand gated channels. Ligand means if something comes and attaches, then it will open. That is called as a ligand gated channel. This is voltage gated. That means if there is a change in the membrane potential, then this channels will open. Okay, so basically this will act like a voltage sensor. This calcium will act like a voltage sensor, and these channels, the specificity of these channels, it is called as the DHP receptor. This receptor or this channel is called as the DHP. DHP means dihydropyridine receptor. Okay, dihydropyridine receptor. Okay, so this dihydropyridine or the DHP receptor will act as a voltage sensor for the calcium channels. So what will happen? It will allow calcium to go inside, like this. What is this space here? So I told you this is the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and you have the sarcoplasm. There is a fluid, which is filling here. This is the sarcoplasmic reticulum, cut portion. Okay, fine. So now if you see on the sarcoplasmic reticulum, okay, inside I told you it stores calcium. Okay, it stores calcium. So see, there are lots of calcium inside the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Now this sarcoplasmic reticulum, this calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, it has to come outside the sarcoplasm. Okay, that is nothing but the fluid, which is the fluid inside the cell. Okay, so if this has to come outside into the sarcoplasm, okay, I'll just label this as the sarcoplasm, so there will be confusion. This portion is the sarcoplasm. Sarcoplasm. Cytoplasm of the muscle tissue is called as sarcoplasm. Very simple. So this is the sarcoplasm. This is the sarcoplasmic reticulum. This is the DHP receptor. This is the T tubule. Okay. So now here, if you see, there is something called as the RYR. Okay, RYR. This is called as ryanodine receptor. Ryanodine receptor. Okay. So two important things which you will have to remember in this T tubule. One is the DHP receptor, which is directly situated on the T tubule. Okay, and another is the ryanodine receptor, which is situated on the sarcoplasmic reticulum. The function of this ryanodine receptor is to allow calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum to come outside into the cytoplasm or the sarcoplasm. It should come out. Okay, it should come out like this. Only when these calcium which comes out into the cytoplasm, then only the muscle contraction can occur. So if you see here, this calcium is important for the myofilaments, that is the actin and the myosin to contract. Okay, so you have the contractile element. This is the sarcomere. Inside the sarcomere, you have the actin and the myosin. Okay, so you want calcium to be there in the sarcoplasm. If the muscle fire, that is the sarcomere has to contract. Okay, clear? Okay. Next, the structure of the sarcomere. Okay, next we are moving to the structure of the sarcomere. So I told you the contractile filaments inside this is the entire thing is the sarcomere. From this line, blue line here to this line is the sarcomere. Okay, so now you see you have one thick line here, okay, and one thin line or thin filament here. Okay, so these filaments are called as contractile filaments. The contractile filaments are actin and myosin. Okay, the thinner one is the actin and the thicker one is the myosin. So how to remember? Very simple. So actin is thin. Okay, actin is thin. So naturally myosin should be thick. So actin is thin. So the thinner one is the actin, and the myosin, you see in the myosin we have hair-like structures, feather-like structures. Okay, so you remember myosin is like somebody with a feather hair on the heads. Okay, this is myosin which is present in the middle. M for middle. So it is present in the middle like this, myosin. Over that you have overlapping actin filaments. Okay, now you see this myosin filament is attached to these lines, this zigzag lines which we saw, they are called as the Z lines or the Z discs. Okay, so the Z lines are like this, something like this, and here also you have the Z lines. Okay, the Z lines. So this is called as the Z disc or the Z line. Okay, so from here you have the thinner one, the thinner filaments. This is the actin. This is the actin. So you have actins like this, okay, which are attached to the Z line, which are attached to Z line. In between this, okay, in between this, here, okay, here you have the thicker one, which is the myosin. The thicker one is the myosin, and this myosin it has like this. It is something like a Velcro tape. How many of you have seen a Velcro tape? Velcro tape is which we use on our shoes to stick and open on badges, on bags. We have this tape where it goes and sticks, and again you can peel it off. Velcro tape. So the fibers on the tape are like this, something like this, no? So this is also like that. Okay, Velcro tape. So this fibrils will help this myosin to go and attach to the actin. This will go and attach to the actin. So this is for anchoring of the myosin to the actin. So you can see these are the fibrils. Okay, and this myosin is attached to the Z line. It is not floating over here. So it is attached to the Z line by a coiled spring-like structure. This is called as titin. This coiled spring-like structure is called as titin. You see, it is attached here. It is called as titin. So Z line, actin, myosin, and then the titin. Okay. So these are the different parts of a sarcomere. Okay. So you see that these are going and attaching itself to this myosin. This, what is this, feather-like structures? They are going and attaching themselves to the actin, and this is called as a cross bridge formation. So this is called as cross bridge formation. Here, if you see, so this entire portion where this is going and attaching, this is called as cross bridge formation. They are called as cross bridges. Okay. So in muscle contraction, we see telling about cross bridges. It's nothing but the bridge, that is a joint which is formed between the myosin and the actin. Okay. Sarcomere. So what is the sarcomere? I told you sarcomere is nothing but from this Z line to this Z line. This entire thing will constitute a sarcomere. So this is called as the sarcomere. This entire thing is called as the sarcomere. I told you it is the contractile unit of the skeletal muscle. Sarcomere is the contractile unit of the skeletal muscle. Okay, fine. Next, troponin. Okay, there is something called as troponin. Now you see here, this is the this reddish one. Okay, this reddish one, you see, it is the tropomyosin. Okay, it is like a helical structure. It is like a twine which is going and coiling itself around. Okay, so this reddish structure is the tropomyosin, and you see that there are black dots here. There are black dots. So these are nothing but these dots. I'll show you these dots. These dots are nothing but the binding sites of myosin on actin molecule. Okay, they are nothing but binding sites of myosin on actin molecule. So what you just now you have seen the previous one, see here. So see here. So this is the actin here. This is the myosin. This myosin head is going to bind here. So this site is called as the myosin head binding site. Okay, that is the active site. So this is the one which you have seen here. So this is where the myosin head will come and bind like this. The myosin head will, suppose this is the myosin molecule, the head will come and bind like this. You have like this, like this. It will go and bind like this, like this, on both these sides. So this is the active site, binding site of myosin head on the actin molecule. So this active binding site is present on the actin molecule. So only if this site is open, then this myosin can come and attach. But the problem is, this tropomyosin is just like a sari or something, a twine, which is going and covering the active sites. Okay, it is going and hiding the active sites. Okay, a cloth hiding the active sites. So it is hiding or obscuring the binding sites here. Okay, so if it is obscured, then the myosin cannot come and bind. The myosin cannot come and bind. Okay, so this is the myosin. and this is the head of the myosin. So it has to come and bind like this. It has to come and bind like this. It has to come and bind like this. Same way below also you'll have one more actin. It will come and bind like this. It will come and bind like this. But if this site is covered by the tropomyosin, then this myosin cannot go and join with actin. If myosin does not go and join with actin, then it cannot contract. Okay, this is like both are holding hands together. Okay, only if the myosin goes and holds its hands together with actin, then the sarcomere can contract. Okay, fine. Okay, now you see there are small round structures. These structures are called as troponin or troponin complex. That is what we are going to see now. So the troponin consists of three subunits. You see there are three units, three subunits. Again, why this is important? Okay, so each subunit has an important function. So you have one is I, one is T, and one is C. I, T, and C. What is the function of troponin I? Okay, the troponin I is the one here which is going to bind to the actin. So it is the binding site for actin. So this troponin I will go and bind to actin. Troponin T will go and bind to the tropomyosin molecule. So troponin T will go and bind to the tropomyosin molecule. This troponin C will bind calcium ions. It will bind calcium ions. So before that, I told you the calcium ions has to come from the sarcoplasmic reticulum into the sarcoplasm through the ryanodine receptor. This calcium now will come and bind to this troponin C. Okay, troponin C. Only if this comes and binds, then what it will do, this troponin, which is like a sari which is coming and covering, now it will slowly come off. This covering will come off. This cloth will come off. Okay, now all the binding sites on the actin molecule will be open. Now this can go and bind. This heads of this can go and bind with this. Okay, clear? Okay, fine. So three subunits, I, T, and C. Okay, I for actin binding, T for tropo, T for T, tropomyosin, C for C, calcium, C for C. So troponin C for calcium, troponin T for tropomyosin. The rest what is left is I. That is one for naturally for actin. So MCQs can even come from this. Troponin I is for binding of actin, tropomyosin, calcium, something magnesium, something they can do. So you have to write I is for actin, T is for tropomyosin. Okay. Next, below here you can see this is nothing but the myosin molecule. I have shown no heads like this. So this is the head. This is the head of the myosin molecule, and this is the tail of the myosin molecule. So the myosin molecule has four light chains. You can see this is the light chain 1, 2, 3, 4. This is something like a mitochondria here. Okay, so these are four light chains, and these red and blue things are heavy chains. You have two heavy chains. So basically, you have two heavy chains and four light chains in a myosin molecule. So this is the diagrammatic picture. But inside, if you see, it will be like this, coiled around each other with light chain and heavy chain. And this is the head. This part is here. Okay, this will go and bind to the active site. This head part will go and bind to the active site here. Okay. So myosin molecule head will go and bind to the active sites of the actin molecule. Normally, it is covered by tropomyosin. So how does the tropomyosin uncover or it? How it will reveal the active sites? The calcium molecule will come and bind to the troponin subunit C. Once it binds, what will happen? This will move the tropomyosin away from the binding sites. So the binding sites will be revealed. And finally, what will happen? This myosin will go and bind to the actin and contraction will occur. Okay. So now you see here. So this is a very important thing. You see here, this is the myosin filament and this is the head. This is the head, the globular structure. This is the head. So previous one also you see this one. So this one. So how they have drawn is they have drawn it like this. So this come like this, like this, like this. Okay. So I'm going to draw it separately. It will be something like this, like this. Okay. So this is something like a hockey ratchet. It's like a hockey ratchet. Okay. So this is like a ratchet. So that's why this theory is called as ratchet theory. This theory is called as ratchet theory. So now you see this will go and bind to, these are the binding sites of myosin on the actin filament. This is the actin filament. This is the myosin binding site. This was initially covered by the tropomyosin. The tropomyosin was covering it like this. Okay. Now what will happen once the calcium comes and binds to the troponin, the tropomyosin will move, and now this will go and bind here. Okay. This will go and bind here. So now this, how does the muscle fiber contract? Okay. That is the main important question. Okay. So once again, I'm going to draw the picture. So this is the Z line. I'm not drawing it as a Z shape or zigzag shape. Simple structure. Z lines, actin, 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 actin. Okay. Now this is the myosin. Okay. So now what? This myosin will have like this. Okay. Like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Okay. So like this is the head here, this portion. Okay, now what this is going to do is, so once this goes and binds, then from here, okay, from here what it will do is this will go first and bind here. Now suppose if this actin filament has to move, okay, this actin filament has to move in this direction, this, so what will happen, this will go and attach itself here. Okay, sorry, this will go and attach itself here, this myosin will attach here, then it will pull the actin filament like this. It will pull the actin filament like this. So the movement of the myosin will be in this direction. Okay. So it is basically something like this. It goes and attaches here and it pulls like this. It pulls like this. Okay. That means it moves on to the next attachment site. This head will move on to the next attachment site. And during the process, this actin will move like this. So this actin will move in this direction. And this myosin will move in this direction, opposite directions. So basically, this head will go and attach here and pull it. This head will go and so these green lines, actin lines, will come together like this in this direction. Same way from here, they will come in this direction. This direction. Okay. So now at the end, what will happen? Once this is happening, what will happen finally? The actin will be like this. Okay. Like this. Since both the ends are attached to the Z lane, this will pull the Z lane also together with it. So from here, the Z lane will come here. Okay. And the myosin will be like this here in between. So now what has happened? It has contracted. The sarcomere has contracted from this length to this length. So this is the contraction of the sarcomere. And this is brought about by this theory, which is called as the ratchet theory. So you see here, this is called as the ratchet theory, or also known as walk along mechanism. Walk along mechanism. Basically, it's like this head is walking on the actin filament. Okay, walking on the actin filament. If you just keep your fingers on the floor and then move your fingers one after the other, that is called like walking. So the head also walks like that. Okay, the head also walks like this. Like this it walks. So it pulls the actin like this, and the myosin will move like this. Okay, so this is one stroke. The movement from here to here, this dotted line is one stroke. Like that, there will be many strokes, many power strokes. Okay, many power strokes. Okay, so with each stroke, this actin filament will move closer and closer. Okay, so this is called as the ratchet theory. So why it is called as the ratchet theory? Especially, I told you it looks like a hockey bat or ratchet. Or ratchet, what is ratchet? This is what they use, the tool used for screwing or unscrewing nuts and bolts. So this looks something like a ratchet. Okay, it goes and locks itself. This head goes and locks itself inside the nut. So same way this goes and locks itself in the site. So that's why it resembles this. So they named it as the ratchet theory or walk along theory. Okay, walk along theory. So the contraction of the actin and myosin is explained by the ratchet theory. Okay, fine. So next, okay, Fenn effect. So what is Fenn effect? So work is done when a muscle contracts. So whenever you have to move something, whenever you have to lift something, your muscle has to contract. Okay. So when a muscle contracts, automatically that work is done. Okay. But how the muscle is contracting? The muscle is contracting because the muscle contains sarcomere. Inside the sarcomere, you have actin and myosin. You have actin and myosin like this, in between like this, actin and myosin. This is contracting. So this contraction is leading to the contraction of the muscle. Okay. So if this has to contract, I told you calcium has to come and bind. Okay. Calcium has to come and bind. So we'll see what is the process, sequential process by which the contraction occurs. But you see here, this muscle contraction, it requires energy. Okay. Whenever you're going to do some work, these contractile filaments have to contract. So for that, it requires energy. That energy is derived from ATP. You all know energy is required for the work to be done. It is derived from the ATP. Okay. So the ATP molecule will be cleaved. It will be broken down into ADP. Okay. So what will happen whenever there is a contraction? ATP will become ADP plus it will release a phosphate molecule plus along with it energy. And this energy is utilized for the contraction of the sarcomere and contraction of the muscle. So whenever you have to do your work, you need energy. And this energy is derived from the cleavage of the ATP. Cleavage means breaking down of the ATP. So more work done. If you're going to do more work, then more ATP is going to get cleaved. Okay. So this effect is called as the Fenn effect. So I'll show you here just a sec. Greater the amount of work performed. That means the more the work you do, the more ATP will be cleaved. So basically, it is directly proportional. More work, more ATP will be cleaved. So this effect is called as Fenn effect. The one who found it out, Fenn, F-E-N-N, Fenn effect. Okay, fine. Next. So we are almost approaching the 40-minute session in line. Okay, so this will automatically get cut off in 5 minutes. So what we can do is we can again end this session and start a new session. Okay, and finish off the rest of the things. Okay, so it will be easy for you. So I will stop here. I'll stop here and end this session and again send you the ID so that you can log in back again within few minutes. Okay, I will give you 2 to 3 minutes. You can log in back again. effect. Okay, we finished with fin effect. So now, next important thing is you have to know how this sarcomere is going to contract. So I told you, you see here, this is the heads. Okay, heads of the myosin. Uh, These are the heads of the myosin, the ratchets. I told you, ratchet theory. So this will go and bind to the myosin binding site on the actin molecule. This will go and bind. This will come and bind. Like this, you have many actin and myosin. This is like a two-dimensional view, but you have to imagine a three-dimensional where you have many actins and myosins, and these heads are going and attaching. So this will go and attach and pull this actin this way. This will go and attach and pull. This will attach. This will attach like that. This first it will attach here. So I will just show the sequence how this is happening. Okay. So first this will attach here. Next head will attach here. Next head will attach here. Same way here, here, here. So you have many heads like this. Only I have drawn three heads. Okay, it's one attached to the actin side. Suppose if this has to move, now what it will do is this one, this portion, first this head, it will go and attach to the next side. Okay, it will release from here and go and attach to the front side. This one which is here, now this will go and attach to this side. Okay, so wait, I will highlight it in a different color so that it will be easy for you to follow. Okay, so now when it is going to contract, next step, there is a next power stroke. This red will go and bind here. This will come and bind here. This will come and bind here. Same way, this will come and bind. This will come and bind here. This will come and bind. Now, again, next stroke. This from here. This will go and bind here. Okay, and this from here, it will go and bind here and bind here. So this myosin would have, sorry, this myosin would have now moved forward. Okay, so while this is contracting, this myosin will move forward. So from here it will go and contract here. So like this is slowly moving forward. This is moving, this myosin is moving in this direction. I mean, this is moving, this is pulling the actin in this direction. Okay, same way from here. So by that, what is happening? This Z lines, okay, this Z lines. Okay, so this is simple, this line from here, Okay, so they are pulled together. Okay, they are pulled together. So if you see from here to here is the sarcomere. This is moving in this direction. Which one? This line is moving in this direction. Okay. This line is moving in this direction, and this line is moving in this direction. So finally, what will happen? The sarcomere, which was like this initially, this long, okay, it was like this, like this, like this, like this, will become like this, like this. So from this length, it has contracted to this length. Okay. So since these heads are walking over the actin, this is called as walk along mechanism or ratchet theory. Okay, fine. Now we are going to see about the different zones of the sarcomere. Okay. Now you see here, this is the actin. Just a sec. Okay. So this region is empty. That is, there is no myosin here. Okay. So you see here, this region is empty. It is only with actin. This is only with actin. Okay. Same way, this side you have the continuation. This side you have continuation. This side you have continuation. So this one, this from here to the Z line. Okay. From here to the Z line. Here till here. Sorry, till here. Okay. This space and this space on the other side, like this. Okay. So exercise. This is the Z line. This Z line is for this side sarcomere also and this side sarcomere also. So a common Z line. So this side, this sarcomere will attach, this side, this sarcomere will attach. So this Z line again, this side, one sarcomere will be there, that will attach, and this side, this sarcomere, this will attach. Okay. So from here, wherever the empty gap is there, from here to the empty gap here, okay, this region. So it is shown in the dotted line. This region is called as the I band. I band. I means isometric band. Isometric means it's even because there is no thick band here, only thin band here. It will appear uniform, even. Okay, that's why it is called as I band. Okay. Now you see. Now you see this region from here to here. Okay, from here to here, what is happening? There is thin band, there is thick band. Okay. Here only thin band is there. Here thin band and thick band. That is actin and myosin is there. So because of this, okay, the appearance will be like thickness. Okay. So if you see in the cut section, in the histopathology, if you see, you will see alternating light lines, and then you will see thick lines. Okay. Light lines, and then you'll see thick lines like this. Then again, lighter. So these light lines are due to this region, the I band, because it comprises only of the thin filament, that is actin. This thick region is due to the actin and myosin present together. Okay. So now once again, highlight. So from here to here, where from this overlapping region to this side here, this entire thing is called as the A band. It is called as the A band. This is called as the A band. A means anisometric. It means it is not uniform. So it is like it consists of both thin and thick, thin and thick. So it is not uniform. So when you see the cut section histopathology, in the electron microscopy, it won't be uniform in appearance. That's why it is called as the A band, where there is overlapping of both actin and myosin. Okay, fine. Now this region in between, okay, in between, again it has only myosin. It has only myosin, no actin. That means the contraction has not occurred. So the beginning position will be like this. Okay, so this region is called the H zone. Okay, this region is called as the H zone. This region is called as the H zone. H zone. Okay, so this is H zone. That is only of the myosin. Only actin is I band, and both actin and myosin is the A band. Okay, so you have A band, I band, H zone. Okay, and this is the Z line. Now the questions which they'll be asking is mostly related to these bands, H band or H zone, whatever you can call it as, I band, H band, A band. So what will happen to these bands when the sarcomere is contracting? That is what the question will be. So it will be very confusing if you don't understand the concept. Okay, so now we will move to the next one and I will show you what is happening over here. Okay, so just concentrate on this portion. This is the relaxed portion. Okay, this is the relaxed status of the sarcomere. So I told you this is the myosin. Okay, this is the actin, and these are the heads, and this is attached by titin. This is the titin which is attached to the Z line. So now in this, now let us see what are the different bands here. Okay, so from here to here is the I band. Okay, it goes on the opposite side till here. Okay, from here to here, from here to here, it is the I band. It is the I band. So the I band consists of only the actin molecule. Okay, next, from here to here is the A band. Okay, it is the A band. Okay, it is the A band. It is not mentioned over here, so I will mention it. It is the A band. Okay, it is the A band. So this entire region from here to here is the A band. Okay, now this region in between. Okay, sorry, we will highlight it with a different color so it will be easy for you. Green. Okay, so this region where only myosin is there, this is called the H band, H zone. Okay, H zone here. So now what we'll see what is going to happen when the sarcomere is going to contract. That means this end and this end are going to pull apart. So this Z line is going to move like this, and this Z line is going to move like this. Why? Because the myosin is pulling the actin, and the actin is attached to this Z line. So when the actin moves, the Z line also will move. What will happen to this bands now? Okay, so once again, see here now, this is the contracted state, this is the contracted state. Now what has happened? You see, initially the Z line was here, it was here, it was here. Okay, it was here. Now from here it has moved to here, and from here it has moved to here. Okay, that means it has contracted. This entire sarcomere has contracted. What has happened to the bands? Let us see now. Now this is the H zone or the H band. Now where is the H band here? Now you see this has become very small. This region alone is the H band. So during contraction, okay, during contraction, we'll write it here. So during contraction, H zone, will it change or not? Yes, it will change. The H zone will shrink. It will decrease. The H zone will change. Okay, it will change. Okay, next we'll come to the I band. We'll come to the I band. Okay, so I band, this is the I band. The reddish one is the I band. Okay, so we'll take this reddish one, I band. Okay, so now you see here what has happened to the I band. So you see from here to here there is a big gap, but here to here there is a thin gap, because this myosin is moving closer and closer like this. So this is decreased. So during contraction, again during contraction, I band also will change. I band also will change. Okay, I band also will change. What will happen to the A band? What will happen to the A band? So A band is by the yellow. It's the A band. Okay. Yellow. So this portion. Okay. This portion A band from here to here. You see? Okay. Now you see here this portion A band from here to here. You see here now. I'm going to draw a line. Now you see carefully. This is the A band initially. See here. Okay. This from here. Okay. Here. Okay. This side. Here. Here. So what has happened to the A band? The length has not changed. It's still same. Whereas the Z line has moved here. The length of the I band has changed from here to here. But the A band, and this is anisometric band, has not changed. So during contraction, okay. So during contraction, the A band the A band. Okay, the A band doesn't change. This is the most important thing. So which band does not change during contraction of the sarcomere is the A band. All other bands will change. The A band will not change. You see, because it is the overlapping portion of the actin myosin. This will remain constant. The in-between portion, the H band will change, the I band will change, but the A band will not change. Okay, so clear? Okay, so this is how the contraction will occur. And here there is something called as the M line, that is the middle line. Okay, so in the middle, exactly equal halves, this half, this half. So the line which is going through the middle is called as the M line. Okay, so they will not ask you M line, but they will ask you about the bands. Okay, fine. Next, coming to the last important thing, neuromuscular transmission. What exactly is happening? Okay, so now you see here. Okay, so okay, so this is the nerve. Okay, so the nerve fiber is like this. You know, the neuron is like this. The neuron is like this. It will come like this. So this is the end. Okay, this is the axon and the end of the axon. Okay, so now you have the muscle, skeletal muscle like this. The skeletal muscle is like this. So it is coming and ending on the skeletal muscle. So this portion where the neuron is coming and ending on the skeletal muscle is called as the neuromuscular junction. So this part is enlarged here. This entire part is enlarged here and shown here. Okay. So this is the end of the neuron. Okay, end of the neuron, and this is the sarcolemma. That is the muscle. This is cell basically. So the covering is nothing but sarcolemma. This is sarcoplasm. So here you can see sarcolemma, and this is sarcoplasm. Sarcoplasm. Okay, fine. And this is sarcoplasmic reticulum. This is sarcoplasmic reticulum. There is nothing but the endoplasmic reticulum. And I told you what is there on the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the ryanodine receptor, RYR receptor. And this is the T tubule, which is dipping inside like this. So the plasma membrane or the sarcolemma is coming and dipping inside like this. So this is the T tubule. On the T tubule, you have the dihydropyridine receptor, which is a voltage gated calcium channel sensor, voltage sensor for calcium channel. Okay, so it will allow calcium to pass through. Okay, fine. Now what exactly is happening? So whenever the nerve is stimulated, so when the nerve is stimulated, the signal, the action potential travels through the nerve. It comes here. So from to the neuromuscular junction. From the junction, it has to cross to the muscle, and the muscle has to get excited. Once it gets excited, then the muscle will contract. Once the muscle contracts, you will do the work like lifting something. Okay, so you will do the work. So now how this is happening? So the signal is coming here. That is the action potential is arriving at the axon terminal. This is the axon terminal. This is the axon terminal. So action potential is arriving. What is happening next? So when the action potential is arriving here, you can see there are calcium channels on the end of the axon. Okay, on the end of the axon, you can see we have the calcium channels. Okay, and inside this dilated portion of the axon, you have many vesicles. Okay, these vesicles contain neurotransmitter like acetylcholine. They contain neurotransmitter like acetylcholine. So these are packed inside the vesicles. So the vesicles are nothing but carriers. So here is the acetylcholine is packed inside this vesicle. Okay, so now inside you have lots of vesicles like this packed with acetylcholine. Now what happens once this action potential comes here, because of the change in the membrane potential, the calcium channels will open. So what will happen? The calcium which is outside in the ECF, it will come inside. So this is called as calcium influx. If it comes inside the cell, it is called as calcium influx. So calcium influx. Once the calcium comes inside, what it will do? This calcium. So you can see all these blue, purplish colors are nothing but calcium. This calcium will lead to the fusion of this vesicle to the membrane. So what will happen now? This vesicle will move towards the periphery membrane. It will attach here, it will fuse, and then it will release all the neurotransmitters into the cleft. This is the gap. So in the neuromuscular junction gap, it will release all the neurotransmitters. And I told you these reddish things are nothing but acetylcholine. Okay, so acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter. Once this acetylcholine is released in the neuromuscular junction, so see here this gap is the neuromuscular junction. Okay, now on the surface of the muscle, okay, this is the sarcolemma, cell membrane, plasma membrane of the muscle. Okay, you have many receptors for acetylcholine. Okay, you have many receptors for acetylcholine. So the receptors will be like this, acetylcholine receptors. So now what will happen? This acetylcholine will come here and it will bind to the receptor. Okay, it will bind to the receptor. So the acetylcholine will come and bind to this acetylcholine receptor. Again, very important thing to note here is what is the type of this receptor? It is a nicotinic cholinergic receptor. Cholinergic means acetylcholine. But what is the type? It is nicotinic cholinergic receptor. There is also muscarinic receptor. Okay, cholinergic receptor. But this is not muscarinic type. This is nicotinic type. Okay, so the receptor which is present here is nicotinic type. It will be denoted by symbol N and N, small n, N and N. N, nicotinic type of receptor, nicotinic cholinergic receptor. Okay, so once this acetylcholine comes and attaches here, what it will do, it will cause the opening of sodium channels. Opening of sodium. So all the sodium which is present outside will come inside. This is called as what? It is called as sodium influx. So in the previous class, I have told you how membrane depolarization occurs. When sodium from the outside comes inside, what will happen? Normally, the inside of the cell is negative. That is, it is in the polarized state, and outside is positive. Now the positive charges, that is sodium ions, are coming inside. So the negativity inside will decrease. So now the membrane from the polarized state will become depolarized. So influx of sodium will lead to depolarization. Okay, it will lead to depolarization. So what will happen? This signal, okay, this depolarization, nothing but this membrane, minus, plus, everything. This will spread along the surface of the membrane and into the T tubule. It will dip down the signal. This negativity and positivity. This depolarization will spread along the T tubule. So this, I told you, this is a voltage gated channel. That means it will sense changes in the voltage. So what has happened now from the polarized state? That is, here initially it was negative, now it has become positive. So there is a change in the voltage. This is detected by the dihydropyridine receptor. So now what this will do, this dihydropyridine receptor is attached to the ryanodine receptor. So this will pull the ryanodine receptor, and the ryanodine receptor will open. Once the ryanodine receptor opens, all the calcium which is present inside the sarcoplasmic reticulum will come and pour into the sarcoplasm, into the cytoplasm, into the sarcoplasm. So all the calcium will come, outside. Now what this calcium will do? So this calcium which has come into the sarcoplasm, now it will go and bind to the troponin C. You have the troponin subunit. So it will go and bind to the troponin C. That will lead to the unhiding of the binding site of myosin. Now the myosin can go and bind to actin. Once it binds, because of the walk along theory or the ratchet theory, the sarcomere will contract. Once the sarcomere contract, muscle will contract. So this is the entire thing which is happening in the neuromuscular junction. So I will just show it in the form of a flow chart again. Okay. So, and we'll finish it off. So first, arrival of action at the axon terminal. Okay. So action potential is arriving here at the axon terminal. Then what is happening? Calcium influx through voltage gated calcium channels. Calcium influx through voltage gated calcium channels. Okay. Next, migration and fusion of acetylcholine vesicles. So I told you the acetylcholine vesicles are fusing. It is going, migrating and fusing. Then what is happening? It is releasing the acetylcholine into the cleft. This acetylcholine is going and binding to the acetylcholine receptor. That is causing increased sodium influx and generation of action potential. This action potential, I told you, it will go and spread along the T tubules. That will lead to release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. How? The ryanodine receptors are opening. This calcium will go and bind to troponin C. What is happening because of this? There is uncovering of the myosin binding sites on actin molecule. So there is a formation of cross bridge or cross linkage. This cross bridge and cross linkage will lead to power stroke. That is the ratchet theory. And finally, there will be contraction of the sarcomere. So all the sarcomeres in the myofibril will contract. That will lead to the contraction of the skeletal muscle. Okay, fine. So now, myasthenia gravis. What is myasthenia gravis? I told you there is a acetylcholine receptor which is present here. Okay, acetylcholine receptor which is present here. This acetylcholine will come and attach here. But what is happening is there are antibodies, auto antibodies formed in the person. So there is a different antibody which is formed. So this antibody will come and bind to the acetylcholine receptor. So now what will happen? This acetylcholine cannot bind here because already something else has come and occupied the seat. Now it cannot come and bind. So if acetylcholine cannot bind, what will happen? There will be no sodium influx, no depolarization, no transmission of impulse, no contraction. Okay, so that is exactly what is happening in myasthenia gravis. You see, this is the antibody which is coming and blocking the acetylcholine receptors. So the acetylcholine, even though it is released, it cannot go and bind. So there is no depolarization and no transmission to the muscle. So what will be there? Because of this, there will be muscle weakness, and severe cases there will be paralysis. That means the muscle will not contract. Okay, so basically the antibodies are to nicotinic type of cholinergic receptors. I told you this is nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. Okay, so how will you treat this? You can either give neostigmine or pyridinostickmine. These are nothing but acetylcholine esterase blockers. So this acetylcholine, okay, when it comes here, normally when it comes here, what will happen? There is an enzyme known as acetylcholine esterase. This will go and break it down or degrade it within few seconds. It is nothing but it will destroy the acetylcholine within few seconds. Okay, so acetylcholine has only few seconds to go and act on the acetylcholine receptor. If it does not go and act, it's just like that movie, you know, what is that movie? Mission Impossible. You have very few seconds left to go inside and take that item, whatever precious item is inside. Like that, acetylcholine has only few precious seconds left to go and act. If it does not go and attach itself, then what will happen? This acetylcholine esterase will go and degrade or destroy this. Okay, that is normal. Fine. Now, here we are going to give drugs like neostigmine, which is an ACHE inhibitor. That means it will destroy the ACHC enzyme. So what will happen now? The acetylcholine has a longer time to act on the acetylcholine receptor. So it will be there for a longer time. So whatever few receptors which are still left, it will go and act over it and slightly improve the contraction. Slightly improve the contraction. It won't completely treat. It will slightly improve. So you can give acetylcholine esterase blockers, or you can give thymectomy, because antibodies are present or produced from the thymus. So if you remove the thymus, this auto antibodies are removed. Okay, so the antibodies will be removed if you do a thymectomy, or you can give immunosuppressive drugs. Okay, so you suppress the immune system by giving drugs like prednisone or cyclosporin. So you can, any of this treatment can be given for myasthenia gravis. So myasthenia gravis is because of antibodies to the acetylcholine receptor, nicotinic type. Okay, next, the last one is the Lambert-Eaton syndrome. Here is very simple. Instead of here antibodies here, the antibodies are to the calcium channels. I told you there are calcium channels here. The calcium is coming inside. Okay, so this will go and block the calcium channels. So the antibodies are towards voltage-gated calcium channels here. Okay, so because of this, there is no calcium influx. So the vesicles will not come and fuse and release acetylcholine here. So there is no acetylcholine here in the neuromuscular junction. Again, the problem is again muscle weakness will be there. Treatment is plasmapheresis. Plasmapheresis means the blood of the patient will contain autoantibodies. So you are going to remove that blood or plasma, and then you are going to transfuse a fresh plasma from another subject who does not have autoantibodies. That is called as plasmapheresis. That is plasma transfusion. Okay, or you can give IV immunoglobulins. Okay, that is antibodies are there. Okay, you give antibody to this antibody, that is nothing but an immunoglobulin. So it will go and block all these antibodies. So all the antibodies are blocked. Now the calcium channel can open and everything can come inside. That also you can do. Or again, you can give immunosuppressants like prednisone or cyclosporin. So what you have to remember important is here the problem is with the calcium channel in Lambert-Eaton syndrome. In myasthenia gravis, it is to the autoantibodies to the acetylcholine, nicotinic type of acetylcholine receptor. Okay, so either you suppress the immune system by giving immunosuppressive drugs, or in case of Lambert-Eaton syndrome, you can do plasmapheresis. In myasthenia gravis, you can give acetylcholinesterase inhibitors. Okay, or you can give IV immunoglobulins. Okay, which can blow and block the antibodies. Okay, fine. So with this, now we have come to the end of this session. Okay, so I hope you have understood this. So now we'll go back to the post-evaluation session. We'll revise the MCQs which you have done fast. Okay, so fine. Now we'll go back to the MCQs. Okay, so we will discuss them techniques. Okay, so which of the following is true? Okay, so the A band lengthens during relaxation, I band shortens during contraction. Okay, so I'll draw a short diagram here, very fast diagram. So this is the Z line. This is the Z line. Okay, and this is the actin. This is the actin. This is the actin, and then this is the myosin. This is the myosin. So this region is the H zone. Okay, so here it is the H band. It is the H band, and from here to here, yeah. So from here to here is the I band. From here to here is the A band, and in between is the H band. So which of this is true? The A band shortens during contraction. Which is the A band? Which is the A band? This is the A band. Will it shorten? It will not shorten. The A band lengthens during I band shortens during contraction. That is, this band will shorten during contraction. So which is the correct answer? The correct answer is B. I told you during, I showed you a diagram. So during contraction, this gap will contract. Okay, this gap will contract. Okay, so this is true. Now we'll move on to the next one, next MCQ. The amount of ATP cleaved is directly proportional to the work done. So the more work you do, the more ATP will be cleaved. So this effect is called as Fenn effect. The option is B, Fenn effect. Okay. So all these are diverters. Okay, nothing. They don't have any meaning. There is no effect like this. Okay. Next MCQ. Myasthenia gravis is due to, just now we have discussed. It is because of antibodies to or autoantibodies to acetylcholine receptors. Nicotinic type of acetyl. They will specifically ask you muscarinic, nicotinic. You had to write nicotinic. Answer is B. Okay. Next question. Treatment for myasthenia gravis is all except. You can give pyridostigmine, you can give immunosuppressants like prednisone, you can remove the thymus, thymectomy. Physostigmine, you cannot give it for myasthenia gravis. Pyridostigmine, neostigmine you can give, not physostigmine. So the answer is D. Next, Lambert-Eaton syndrome is due to antibodies to. So decreased, I told you it is not to acetylcholine. Acetylcholine receptor means it is myasthenia. It is not because of this or not because of depolarization. It is because of antibodies to calcium channels. The answer is A. Next, the movement of myosin over actin is explained by, just now I told you, it is ratchet theory, not racket. Ratchet. I told you how a ratchet looks like a golf, golf stick, ratchet theory. Okay, ratchet theory or walk along theory. Answer is C, MCQ 6. Next, the voltage, this voltage sensor for calcium channel, the T-tubule, just now I discussed. It is not acetylcholine receptor. It is not ryanodine receptor. Ryanodine receptor is present on the sarcoplasmic reticulum. This is the dihydropyridine receptor. There is no such receptor as HMP receptor. Okay, just to confuse you. So DHP receptor, that is the dihydropyridine receptor, is the voltage sensor for calcium channel. Okay, and one more MCQ which I have added to see whether you have understood. The myosin chain is comprised of. Okay, we have seen the structure of myosin. So how many chains are there? 2 heavy, 2 light, 4 heavy, 4 light. are 2 light and 4 heavy, or 2 heavy and 4 light? What is the answer? The answer is, we have seen the light chains are 4 chains. I showed you in the form of a mitochondria. So you have 4 light chains and 2 heavy chains. Okay. So 4 light chains and 2 heavy chains. The answer is A. Okay. So neuromuscular junction, there are many other things. They can ask you about neuromuscular junction blockers. What are the different blockers? Everything. Okay. So since this is a demo session, I have only covered the important things. Okay. So with this, we end this session here. Thank you very much for listening patiently. Okay.